Hey everyone, it's me Gavin, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about my first impressions of Honkai Star Rail's second closed beta. Now I know a lot of people were trying out to get into this and unfortunately you guys weren't able to, so I'm hoping that some of the points that I make here give you a little bit more clarification on certain systems in the game and everything. I'm going to highlight a lot of the positives and also some of the things that I would potentially change by the time that the game releases, hopefully. But with that being said, luckily enough, I was actually able to get in and try it out, so I'm really hoping that this helps you out. Anyways, keep in mind one other thing, this is not indicative of the final release, so everything that I say here, take it with a grain of salt. It may not make it into the final game, we'll have to wait and see. Anyways, let's dive into it. So the very first thing that I want to talk about here is actually my very first impressions of the overall presentation of this game. I think that it is presented very beautifully. I really love the overall aesthetic, especially with the opening scenes where we get to see Kafka playing her imaginary violin. If you guys have seen the cutscene on YouTube, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. She's just like going to town while the entire spaceship is just getting invaded by all of these different creatures, which we end up learning about. And honestly, I gotta say, it's really cool to actually see all that chaos going on with this like serene canon and D playing in the background. Again, just everything aesthetically is really good. The visuals are fantastic. You get to see again outside of like the windows and everything, just the infinite amount of like stars and everything in space. And whenever you pull up on like different planets and stuff, you can actually see them in the distance. It's really pleasing to the eye, especially if you're somebody who's been like a fan of games like Phantasy Star Online and everything. As myself, I grew up playing a lot of games placed in space like Star Ocean and such, and honestly this just really harkens back to those old school RPGs that I really love. Now another thing I did want to talk about is actually the combat. It does seem a little bit simplistic with there being only like 3 commands that you have to choose for each of your characters, and one of those commands only gets activated every so often in the form of your ultimate. Now your first command is pretty much just your regular standard attack. You hit one single target, and then you have your second command, which is your blast attack, and this blast actually hits sometimes multiple targets, or it's just a stronger iteration of a single target, which will hit multiple times usually and do a lot more damage. This is really good for like taking down the toughness meter of your enemies. So again, it doesn't really seem like it's overly complex, but the systems are actually pretty in depth once you get into it. So again, with the only 3 commands that you have at your disposal, I found it a little bit strange to not have the ability to defend it whenever it came to your character's turns, unless you had a character that was actually able to cast a shield on one of your party members. And then another thing that I found a little bit strange is that you couldn't like run from the battles. Now I'm not really sure again if these systems are hidden away somewheres, but I just didn't notice them in my own playthrough. But I will say that the ability to activate each of your party members' ultimates as soon as they become available, whether it be the enemy's turn to act or your turn, it's really damn cool and honestly speeds up the pace of things. Also, there's an option to speed up the battle itself to go 2 times speed. So if you're a little bit impatient, then you can always just click that and then the battle will go really quickly. It'll be over before you know it, and then honestly you just keep on going back to exploration. So it's really very much appreciated. One thing I will say again about the battle, it really kind of gets a little bit more in depth when you start taking into account a lot of the characters' affinities, whether it be physical or quantum or fire, ice, whatever it may be. These actually counteract different abilities or different affinities, with other enemies and stuff like that. So it really kind of makes you like strategize which character you're going to use in order to attack which unit. And again, it adds just another layer of depth to this. So again, it really feels simplistic, but there's a lot of depth and is very much appreciated. Really dug the battle system. Now moving on to exploration, one thing that I will say about this is that it borrows a lot from like other RPGs that I've seen in the same genre, and it's not really a bad thing I guess, but I do find that like the beginning portion of this game is very linear, and I'm sure that's just to familiarize yourselves with a lot of the systems put in place into the game. But we do see, you know, destructible objects which you can break open and get like different collectibles or items and stuff from. You'll also see things like just regular puzzles that you'll have to use or solve in order to traverse and get past certain segments. There's a lot of like side quests and characters to help out and everything, which is really damn cool. And honestly, a lot of the dialogue is really good and actually makes you feel like you're doing something and not just going for a go-to quest, which usually seems to plague a lot of the genre. Anyways, it's very nice to see all the different environments once again and actually explore like a lot of the more open areas. I will say that there are a lot of sights to see in this game, and exploration really feels great. Very reminiscent at times of Genshin Impact, which is another Hoyoverse game, obviously. You see a lot of systems actually borrowed from that game within Honkai Star Rail. I mean, you got things like Trailblaze records, which kind of remind me a little bit of the reputation system for each of the cities in Genshin. The map system seems very familiar, with having a lot of like different waypoints that you can quick travel with, which is very damn helpful. We have a mission list, which will prioritize your main story quests and also your side quests. Again, going into like the menus and everything and talking about that, the team setup screen is pretty much a straight rip of Genshin's team setup, with also the option for quick team setup. Really, really familiar systems. The character screen, very much familiar as well. You're going to see the return of a lot of systems, like it's worded a little bit different, but you have constellations, but in Honkai Star Rail they're called Eidolons. We also have light cones, which are pretty much the mirror of weapons in Genshin, and then you also have artifacts. Yeah, that's right. You have a lot of different like gears, and these are called relics in Honkai Star Rail, but again, it's the same deal. It's just random equipment pieces that have randomly generated stats that you can actually go and refarm, and then hopefully get the stat that you need for your characters. Yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff here that's really very much the same. You're also able to ascend your characters after they hit a certain level, and upon ascending your characters, you unlock new abilities which you put points into to make them a little bit more strong or versatile in combat. Again, a lot of the familiar stuff that we've seen with Genshin is actually here. The inventory system, the crafting systems, being able to wish on different characters, which we'll talk about very shortly. You have an achievement system. You also have the store in which you can go and spend your currencies in order to unlock different characters or different light cones. Different boxes which contain multiple items that you may need in order for upgrades. You have ascension items. Again, very, very Genshin in terms of that. We also have our archive, which we can go and dig in deeper and learn a little bit more about the enemies and people we've encountered along our journey. There's a ton of stuff here. You also have your guide, which is pretty much a mirror image of the adventure log in Genshin Impact. And then you also have a travel log, which will pretty much tell you that, hey, if you complete these daily objectives and so on and so forth, we will give you rewards that you can actually use in order to pull more characters. Again, if you have played Genshin Impact, this is very familiar. Again, everything else here is pretty much just cut and paste. It's honestly just cut and paste. Now, moving on to the music, I will say that it is very good. This soundtrack is completely night and day when it comes to other Hoyoverse games, being Honkai Impact 3rd and Genshin Impact. I really love the vibe for this one. It seems more of like the overarching theme here is kind of like techno, obviously, with it being futuristic, but there's also some like dubstep elements and everything thrown in on certain tracks, and it really gets you moving. I will say that it's very reminiscent of like some PVs, I guess, for Honkai Impact 3rd, usually in that same vein, right? These tracks are a little bit more upbeat, and again, they get you really moving. I will say that it's definitely a pleasure to listen to, and I really want to hear more from Honkai Star Rail. Now, moving on to the gacha system, this is actually something that's pretty much ripped directly from Genshin Impact, literally down to the currency amounts. So if you're familiar with that game, you will have no trouble adjusting to this. The only difference is that the currencies are listed differently or named differently. Instead of dealing with Primo Gems this time around, we're actually dealing with Stellar Jade. Now, Stellar Jade can be obtained the exact same way as Primo Gems are obtained in Genshin, which is pretty much exploration, story quests, opening up treasure chests, limited time events, all that good stuff. Now, the Stellar Jade can be traded in quantities of 160 for either a Star Rail Pass, which is your Acquaint Fate, I guess, used for the permanent banner, or a Star Rail Special Pass, which is actually used for your limited banners, or Oriented Warp, as it's called in this game. Now, again, you can do either a single pull or a 10 pull for the gacha system, and there's usually limited banners offered alongside the weapon banner, as well as the permanent banner. So again, nothing really new here. You have another store, which is also called the Herta store. Now, this is actually using currency that you can build up by doing the endgame in Honkai Star Rail, and this actually offers a couple of like unique characters or a couple of coffers, level up items, that whole jazz. Honestly, I'm really happy to see this because it gives a little more incentive to take part in the endgame for this game, which again I will touch on very shortly. We also have our Embers exchange, which uses Undying Embers. Now, Undying Embers can be obtained from actually pulling on different banners, and this currency can be used to trade in for like ascension items, more money, or credits as it's called in this game, and again level up items, so on and so forth. And then we also have, which is pretty much our Masterless Glitter exchange, I guess, or Starlight exchange as it's called in this one. And again, you can use this to trade in for additional Star Rail passes or special passes, other characters that are going to be limited. I'm sure this is going to change on a monthly basis, and also weapons. So again, very similar to Genshin. Pretty much an exact rip. Anyways, that's pretty much the coverage that I do have on the gacha system. I'm not really sure about like the hard pities or anything like that. I'm pretty sure that they will stick with the same 90 pulls, guarantees you the character. There was actually a beginner banner that was placed in the second closed beta, and that beginner banner guaranteed you a 5-star within 50 pulls. So I'm wondering if the beginner banner is going to be just a limited time thing, or if it's something that's going to be reoccurring from time to time. I'd very much like to see it. Now, moving on to the characters, I absolutely love all the designs that I've seen thus far. There are a couple of other characters that are a little more quirky, and it's very much appreciated, but if you've played any other Hoyoverse game, that you know that these characters are actually going to follow the same design aesthetic, which is really damn good. There's a lot of like little details in their outfits and everything like that, and it's something that's really eye-catching. There's a lot of different personalities here from the characters. There's a lot of variety. You get to see some returning faces from Honkai Impact 3 with the same names, but they're not the same characters. Keep that in mind, but it's really cool regardless to see them designed completely differently here. All in all, I think that every character that I've encountered thus far has been awesome. I'm really looking forward to see any other new additions. Next, let's talk about the end game of Honkai Star Rail, which I'm sure a lot of you guys are interested in knowing more about. It's called the Simulated Universe, and hopefully I do it justice. Now, the Simulated Universe borrows heavily from the Elysian Realm in Honkai Impact 3, and that is a good thing because the Elysian Realm is a really replayable endgame mode, and that's no different here with the Simulated Universe. Now, the Simulated Universe is divided into two different modes, Exploration Mode and Challenge Mode. Challenge Mode can only be accessed if you have a save file from Exploration Mode, which means you have to complete it. Now, Exploration Mode, upon entering it, you will see a recommended team level as well as different enemy weakness types, so it's recommended to bring in your initial party of 3 characters with those elements in order to take down those initial battles a little bit easier. Now, upon completing the battles, you will be presented with a screen very similar to Elysian Realm called the Blessing Screen. Now, this will give you a couple of different blessings that will be randomly generated that you get to choose one from in order to benefit your party. Now, I believe that these blessings actually carry over into your save file for Challenge Mode, so there's just that other added layer of strategy here. So you really have to be mindful of the blessings that you're picking and hoping that they're actually going to benefit you when it comes time for Challenge Mode. Now, also, throughout the Exploration Mode run, you will encounter a couple of powerful enemies. They usually gatekeep the next floor, or they'll gatekeep these different beacons. I can't remember the exact name for them, but whenever you complete that powerful enemy battle, you'll unlock this beacon, which will allow you to bring an additional character into Exploration Mode. Now, this will make your party of 3 a party of 4 initially, and every other beacon that you encounter afterwards will allow you to bring another character that you may have in your team into the Simulated Universe, and you can actually swap them out for different other characters to really better suit different situations. So it's really neat to actually see this implemented, and I really love it because it allows a lot more strategy and, again, better situating yourself for the stronger encounters. Also, you will encounter different treasure chests and different NPCs in the Exploration Mode. Now, usually they give you these things called codes. These codes can actually be slotted into this terminal that you'll find, and upon doing so, it'll present you with additional blessing, if you're lucky enough. Different codes had different rates of success, so sometimes you'll fail and you won't actually get a blessing. Other times you will succeed and it'll be a normal blessing, but you also have different codes that have like a higher rarity chance, so that'll give you a rare blessing, which really will benefit your run. So again, it's just another little added layer of luck, I guess, here. Now, initially, each of these terminals just have 3 chances, but you can get different curios, which will actually increase the number of chances that you will get from each of these terminals. Now, you may ask, what's a curio? A curio is something that you can actually trade in currency that you get through your run of the exploration mode at various shops. Now, shops seem to be every other floor through the exploration mode. So once you complete your initial floor, the next floor will be a shop. Then you'll go into another exploration mode floor, and then the next floor will be another shop. So again, you really want to be mindful of the curios that you're picking here. A lot of them actually have different effects. These curios can be used for subsequent runs as well. So some will actually benefit the current run that you're doing for the exploration mode, and other curios will benefit your subsequent run. So again, a lot of things to take in here. I know it sounds like a lot, but it's a really damn good endgame. Upon completing exploration mode, again, I will say you get to create a save file. Now, this save file, all of the blessings and the characters that you actually got into your exploration mode run will be accessible in your challenge mode run. Now, challenge mode is actually going to pit you against a really strong enemy, and this enemy has a lot of health, and it's able to summon in additional enemies to help it out in its battle. So again, you have to really better situate yourself for this fight and try to score as high as possible. Upon getting a high score, you'll be presented with additional rewards for your run of challenge mode. Again, I know it's a lot to take in, so if you have to go back and go and rewatch all of that, again, I'm sorry. I hope I did it justice, but there's a lot of stuff to take in here. Now, upon completing your runs, you're presented with Herta Bond. Again, this is a currency that you can use in the Herta shop or Herta store, and you can trade this in for different characters and different extension items and different materials, all that good stuff. There's so much in this endgame that it's infinitely replayable, and I'm sure you guys will appreciate it as much as I did. I'm very much impressed with it. One other thing I should mention is that you also gain the ability to have an Aeon intervention throughout your exploration mode run and your challenge mode run. And essentially what this is just an extra turn where your Aeon or this entity will actually just come in and just do an attack or do a buff for your party or whatever, and it'll just help you out a little bit more. So again, it's just a neat little thing that they added in to have a little more pity for you, I guess. But it's a very great system. There's definitely some difficulty as well, so that's very much appreciated, and I'm sure a lot of whales are really going to love challenge mode. So again, huge thumbs up there for me. Lastly, I want to talk about a couple of things that I would potentially change, hopefully before the game releases. Very first, which being, I really hope that there's going to be an addition to actually be able to defend with your characters or flee from battles. I feel like that's something that's very standard when it comes to turn-based RPGs, and a lot of people would really appreciate that, so hopefully that's one thing that gets added in. Another thing that I would like to see is the ability whenever you're running around to actually jump, because currently there's no jump command. And I don't know what it is about me, but I just like to go and jump around whenever I'm exploring, so I hope they add that in as well. Another thing that I'm sure a lot of people won't really like a whole lot. Now, if you're not familiar with the Tales series, then you're probably going to be a little bit alarmed here. A lot of the characters like to repeat the names of their abilities and their ultimates, and it can get a little bit annoying, especially if you have that battle speed up on, so you get to continually hear a lot of like different interactions. Some other characters like Herta, as somebody that I did have the opportunity to play with in my playthrough, has an ability that as soon as you do a certain action, she'll just immediately take precedent for the next turn and come in and say, "It's time to twirl." So you'll get to hear, "It's time to twirl," multiple times throughout the same battle, and it can get very annoying, but that's just another thing that I wanted to point out. There was also one boss encounter that I got to participate in that I found was like supposed to be really epic, but the track kind of didn't suit it, so hopefully they're able to replace the background music for that one. I don't know why, but like everything else in this game sounds so damn good except for that one fight. So again, hopefully in the final release it's a little bit different. Also, there were a couple of instances where like characters were speaking and it's just like the same dialogue that you get to see pop up in Honkai Star Rail, where you don't really have to like press X or anything to progress the conversation. It's just kind of like environmental conversation, I guess. And the text was incredibly fast, so hopefully they kind of slowed that down as well. And then there were a couple of other minor things, like there being no ability to have a 1920 by 1080p resolution option in windowed mode, which is very strange. So if you want it to full screen for 920 by 1080, that's the only option that you had. Again, very odd. I'm sure they're well aware of this. There were a couple of other issues that they also mentioned they were aware of, in terms of like being able to use like a PlayStation controller with the game, or any kind of wireless controller for that matter. There were a few things that I know that they're working on, but all in all, I will say that this is a very solid second closed beta, and if this goes to show for the final release of Honkai Star Rail, I think we are in for one heck of an adventure. I am definitely on board with this, and honestly, I think when it releases, this may become my main game. I am very impressed, and I really can't wait to see what else is to come from Honkai Star Rail. I'm sure that I missed out on a lot of other things that I could talk about, but I'm sure you guys will be very much lost in this game when it does release as well, so hopefully you guys will be able to go in and find out for yourself very soon. That's going to do it for the video, however, so if you guys did find this helpful, again, please don't forget to hit that like button. Also, leave some comments down in the comments below. I'd love to chat with you guys and answer some more questions if I can, so please feel free to leave a comment and I will get back to you. Anyways, that's going to do it for me. I'll see you all for the next one, Trailblazers. Take care. Peace.